Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast, Smart Man, Smarter Woman, a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. And thank you very much for giving us a listen today. I am Steve Lotes.
And I am Juliet Aurora.
And we are your co-hosts. And before I introduce today's guest, I think my dear partner in crime may have a few words today. How is the smarter woman herself? How are you doing, Juliet?
I am excellent. You know, that's a really tough title to live up to on a daily basis. There are days where I'm not the smarter woman. So I don't know, we got to kind of play it by ear sometimes whether I get that title. But no, I'm excellent. It certainly feels like winter today. But it is winter. I'm in Canada. I shouldn't really be too surprised. And I'm not sure how much of today's conversation I'm actually going to participate in because it's a marketing conversation, which isn't necessarily, my forte. But I think the audience today will get a lot of use because marketing is usually one of the biggest challenges for most businesses. So I think it's going to be a great episode. And I'll hand it back to you, Steve.
Well, I really appreciate that. A couple of things there, Juliet. I really have never known you not have something to say. So I'm pretty sure that you will be participating in this conversation. And as for being the smarter woman, you have to remember what you're being compared to, right? And it's smart man, smarter woman. So even on a bad day, you're always smarter than me. So you don't have to really worry about living, the bar's not that high. Okay.
Oh, come on, you're selling yourself short there.
And I know you'll do just a spectacular job as you always do. So anyway, with the audience doesn't want to listen to you and I just ramble on here. So let's bring in our guest, and all the way from certainly one of the most beautiful places in Canada, if not the entire world. We were there a couple of years ago on a quick drive-through, and I'm sure we didn't do it justice, but we really loved it, and that is the Annapolis Valley in Nova Scotia in Canada, like I said. And our special guest, Mr. Shaun Whynacht, who I love his tagline. He's a digital marketing specialist, but I prefer what I think he has in his email signature, which is the doer of cool marketing stuff. And that is a great tag. So without further ado, Shaun, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Our pleasure. Now, before we start getting into some of this marketing stuff and how we can help our audience, maybe you could start us off by sharing a little bit about your own entrepreneurial journey, a little bit about who you are, what you do, and maybe who you help. And let's go from there.
Absolutely. So my entrepreneurial journey started a long time ago, much earlier than I was actually aware of. I remember being a little boy, and my grandfather had a TV repair business in our house, and I lived with my grandparents and my mom. And I remember going out to his workshop and sitting on the bench while he fixed TVs and going out with him to deliver these TVs back. This is before, TVs were disposable. People actually fixed them. And I saw that relationship he'd have with clients, going in, knowing them, meeting them, and everything. And then it wasn't until grade 9 in high school, I saw this poster in school that said Entrepreneurial Conference. And I went to the guidance counselor and I'm like, what does that word mean? And she said, it's somebody that runs their own business. And immediately I was familiar with that. I grew up with that. And, I went to that. And in grade 10, I started my first business. It was a DJ company, and I DJ'd some high school dances, and then it expanded into community dances, weddings. I got my professional training in video production and started into marketing videos. And then from there, I went west, learned web design, bringing me right back to the East Coast 10 years ago, specializing in digital marketing, all the points in between. So that's really the summary of my entrepreneurial journey. Along the way, I've helped other family businesses, operate and succeed, and started some other little side ventures along the way too. But my heart is truly in marketing.
Okay.
I love that in grade 9, you attended an entrepreneurial conference. I have never seen any high school advertise any such thing for high school students. I think it's a fabulous idea because there aren't enough schools talking about owning your own business and being a business owner. They're all talk about, preparing you to work for somebody else. So I love that you actually attended one and that they were advertising it in your school. That's great.
Yeah, it was a great event. You were amidst other people who were just like you, and they were at different stages. Some of them had a business, some of them were thinking of starting it, and some of them had no idea what they wanted to do with their life, but they still attended. And I think that's where the heart of entrepreneurship is it's all about opportunities and really just finding where you fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to agree as well that it's not talked about enough in school, and I think high school and maybe even sooner is where it should be talked about. I mean, there are lots of kids who have no interest in going to university. The thought of, maybe they just feel that they're not going to, qualify to get into university, or it doesn't appeal to them at all. And that they're always wondering, okay, well, if I don't do that, what am I going to do? Like, what are the options? And if I did want to start my own business, how do I start my own business? What are the steps? And so I've always thought that that should be something, whether it's an entrepreneurial actual class or it's part of another course, but I think it should certainly be something that's talked about. I would be remiss if I did not ask how you came about the name of your business, Blue Cow Marketing.
So this story comes up a lot. Everybody asks me that, and I really wish that I had this very in-depth, story to tell about it. But the reality came about that, when I wanted to start my business in the marketing side, I knew I wanted something that, had, a fun character. And for me, I don't know why, I always thought cows were just, there was more going on there. Like when you saw a cow in a pasture, you're like, that cow is probably a genius, but people just discredit them, and they're always fun and that kind of thing. So when it came down to it, it was like, okay, let's pick a color. Blue was my favorite color, and then it used to be Blue Cow Creative, and the name has changed to Blue Cow Marketing, in the last 9 years. So that's really what it was. There's no big philosophy about seeing a blue cow when I was young and aspiring to have something unique, right? So it's not like Seth Godin's Purple Cow or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was any connection there to the Purple Cow, but because I thought it was a great name.
Yeah, and over the years, everybody says it's memorable. I always remember it. So
yeah, for sure.
And I love, so our audience, obviously, this is a podcast. You can't see Shaun, but behind Shaun on the wall is a picture of 6 cows. 5 of them are black, 1 of them is blue, and then it says underneath it in blue writing, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out?" Which I guess is a Dr. Seuss saying.
That is correct. Yep.
But I think that just ties in perfectly with your entire marketing name and your firm name.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that.
Makes it memorable.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Digital marketing. For most small business owners, it's a scary phrase.
Mm-hmm.
It's an expensive phrase for a lot of.
It can be a frustrating place. For the small business owner who, maybe they're on a limited budget, they don't have the money to do everything they should be doing online, where would you advise them to start so they can start growing their business, so that maybe as they grow, they can start to incorporate some of these other parts of the digital marketing world?
Before you answer that, can I take it back a step?
Mm-hmm.
Because you, Steve, are a marketer. Shaun, you are a marketer. Our audience may not all understand what the difference is between digital marketing and marketing. So maybe if you could start with that and tell us, what does digital marketing mean?
Absolutely.
Answer Steve's question.
And this question, I hear this a lot, and a lot of times, new businesses or people that are, just getting started with digital marketing look at it as it's something completely new that they're unfamiliar with. But the reality is, marketing, if they have a business, they understand, some level of what marketing is. Digital marketing is just using a different means to do that type of marketing. So it's using technology. So instead of running newspaper ads or radio ads, you're running Facebook ads or Google ads. Instead of having a storefront only, you now have a website where people can find you. The idea is you still want to be able to make yourself accessible, make it easy for people to communicate with you, and don't overcomplicate it. So Steve, when you were saying about, if somebody doesn't have the budget or the wherewithal yet to take it all on, you should absolutely never try to take it all on, because you're going to overwhelm yourself. And for another reason, you don't have all the time to learn it all. There's a great book out there called How Not Why, which is not How Not Why. I can't remember the name of the book. Who Not How. That's what it was. Who Not How. And the idea is find people that can help you do what you need to do in those little steps along the way. Don't try to learn it all yourself, because you're going to, that's not your area of expertise. So the reality is, if you have a website or you don't have a website, you don't really need to spend a lot of money on it unless you're trying to make it an e-commerce site and sell products. When you come down to it and think of, people are going to start to go to Google and they're going to type in a search, right? If they know about your business or they hear about it, they're going to search for the name. And really, what do they want to know? They want to know, when are you open? How do I contact you? Who are you, right? Really, those three things in the very basic level. And then maybe they're on Facebook, so you should be there. If you're a professional out there doing professional service to other businesses, you should be on LinkedIn. There's just certain places that are standard that we tell people that they should be out there. Don't get worried right yet about, should I be doing X amount of posts per week? Just make sure that you're able to be found online. The next step from that is then looking at, okay, how can I start to get in front of more people, right? Because those people that are trying to find you by either getting a referral or they're doing a Google search, their intent is higher than somebody who doesn't know about you, right? Or doesn't know of the service or product that you have or the problem that you solve. So that's what I really like to get people to think about is, if you're found online, whether you have a Google listing or you have your website, you are in one way or another doing digital marketing.
Okay.
Right?
So that should make everybody feel better, because most people nowadays have a website, they have a Google business listing. So at least now you can feel like you've got your toes in the water already. Now we're going to get you to maybe put your foot in and go a little bit further. And I love the phrase, who not how. One thing I'd kind of like to focus on that you kind of touched on was, if you are business to business, that you should be on LinkedIn versus being on Facebook, or if your customers are on Facebook. So how much do you emphasize before someone is to venture into digital marketing or expand their digital marketing presence, understanding who their ideal client is or who their client base is and where they are?
And it's extremely important. As much as understanding who your client is, you also have to have a strong understanding of who your client is not. So a lot of times people will look at it as, I could service anyone, right? So they cast this huge broad net, and they're really ending up being nobody to no one. So by narrowing it down, saying, I service, entrepreneurs who are between 35 and 50, primarily women, right? That is narrowing it down, right? So I would know that is my audience. And I only know that myself because when I look back at clients that I've worked with, that has been the demographic that has worked really well with me. The other side too is ask them, right? If you've worked with somebody, say, like, where do you find out information online? Like, where do you personally go? And if they say, well, I'm on Facebook, and Facebook's the biggest network that's out there, because, whether they're there for business, they're probably also there for their personal life as well. But I look at LinkedIn as that's where of the people, right? So very little do you see brands advertising on LinkedIn. You're seeing posts when you go on there from the people behind the business. And that's where those personal one-to-one, business-to-business connections are made. In my opinion, that's been the experience that I've had in working not only with myself, but with certain clients that I have that are in that space.
Right. Great. Mm-hmm. What would you say, in your experience of dealing with, different entrepreneurs, different businesses, is there a common mistake you see them doing when they're first starting out in the world of digital marketing that is something they really should try to avoid?
Yeah, they're trying to take on too much. So they're creating their Facebook business page. They've got an Instagram account. They're hopping on Twitter. They're doing YouTube, and well, they're trying to do it, but they're really it's spreading themselves too thin. So they're not really understanding how to do one of them really well, and then take those learnings from that and apply it to the next one, right? So the idea is, where can you really give the best effort? So, somebody that's on Twitter is a unique, skill set and understanding than somebody who's on Facebook. Twitter is all about the now, the moment. So, if you're always glued to your phone and you want to be connected, that's a great platform to be on. But if you don't want to, and you want to, have something with a longer shelf life, then Facebook's a really good platform that's there.
We will continue with our conversation right after this message from a friend of the show. AIS Solutions is an award-winning cloud accounting firm serving small businesses all across Canada. If you want to move your bookkeeping from the desktops of the dark ages to the cloud and get your financials wherever you are, whenever you want them, then contact AIS Solutions' team of trained professionals today at www.aissolutions.ca. And now, back to our conversation.
The biggest thing I tell people is, go on, if you've never been there before from a business standpoint, go on and start to look up some businesses that you personally shop at and see what are they doing. It's the same thing as if you went to a house party and there was like 100 people that you've never met before. You're not going to walk through the door and start talking out loud and trying to bring all the attention to yourself. No, you're going to go through and you're going to start to mingle. You're going to listen, and you're going to see what conversations are happening and see where you fit in. And over time, you'll start to feel more comfortable with the people that are there, and you'll start to make connections. The same thing is true when you're on social media. It's just a different medium. There's still a network of individuals feeding into it. You need to go on, you start to observe and start to listen and see what other people are doing.
I love the analogy of the house party and going in, and you wouldn't just start talking to everybody. You would listen first. I love that analogy. So just a dive a little bit into Facebook. In our industry, in the accounting space, Facebook groups have become a huge thing, again, in our industry, where there's a lot of sharing of knowledge, there's a lot of discussion. I mean, I know and have met people on Facebook groups that I then will meet in person, 6 months later, a year later at a conference, and I feel like I already know them, and I'm surprised that it's the first time I've ever met them. Is that, and I'm relating it to from my industry, but is that common among, are Facebook groups popular across the board? Should businesses be thinking about joining or starting Facebook groups?
Absolutely. And it's funny how, when Facebook first came out, groups were really the only way that a business could make kind of an online entity. And then they shifted over, they created pages. So people have pulled away from it. Now, groups are just making this comeback. And it's very valuable because if you take the approach of using social media to genuinely want to help people and knowledge share, then you're doing it right. You're not going on social media just to try to keep selling. Social media is just a place to gain interest, get people to know who you are, and they will, out of curiosity, start to engage in conversation and check out who you are. So when you find a group, and I suggest that you strongly go join a group versus starting one when you're first getting going, because it's hard to get the momentum in a group, but go in there and just start to, again, same thing. Look at what the amount of discussions that are happening. People create a post and then there's discussions on that thread that's on there, and see if you can add some value to that. And then suddenly over time, what you'll do is you'll start to then either post some content or post a question, and then you're leading a discussion. And what will happen is somebody will click on your name and they'll look at your personal profile. So as much as people I want to keep the personal and the professional separate, You can't do that as much with groups because you are personally connected to it. So making sure that your personal profile does mention something about your business and maybe has a link to your website on it somewhere, because people will click on it to check out who you are. Obviously, keep your security level if you don't want your personal photos showing up. Make them only for friends. But the idea is somebody's going to go check out who you are there, and then you're going to want to start in some discussions back and forth, and you will start to generate leads there. A lot of times, like for example, if I'm in a business group, I will see people asking questions like, "Hey, I need to do a new logo, or I need to do a new website. Do you know anyone?" Right? People will start to comment on there, and if I suggest myself, I can message the person and engage in that conversation, right? But if I went in there and started posting every day, "Hey, come to me for web design, come to me for marketing," for one, you're going to get banned from the group because in most cases is against the policy. And two, you're going to be that annoying person who, we all know those people that you can hear them in any room you go in, whether there's 100 people or 1,000 people, that person is at that party because you can hear them shouting over everyone. You don't want to be that person.
Yeah. That's very true. Very true.
And for business owners that have a group or have started a group already, and they have a business page, where do you recommend that they're sharing their content? Are they further ahead to share it on the page, or are they further ahead to share it in the group, or is there different type of content that they would share on one versus the other?
That is a great question. I love that question because it's all about becoming valuable to the audience that's there, whether they're a paying client yet or not. If somebody's going to come to your page and like your page, you're going to have some kind of content coming out to them. And a little later on, we'll probably talk about more of the advertising side. But the idea is you're just giving them, a little bit of value there, right? The idea of the group, in my opinion, is this is like, that VIP level, right? It's another level of commitment that somebody's like, I'm going to join that group. There's a different level between liking and joining. And when you join, you're expecting a different experience. So you've got content that you might put out there, post, and it doesn't always have to be your own stuff. The idea is, your purpose is to be kind of always on the outlook for what would be valuable to this audience. So if you see somebody else had created a YouTube video and you're like, this is great content, share it to that group, right? Give some preamble in the post saying, here's what I love about this video, check it out. But the other side is you want to have access to the people that are in there, and they want to have some kind of access to you. So what works really well in a business side is say, hey, I've got this group, we're going to post content on X, Y, and Z, but once a month, we're going to do a Facebook Live Q&A on whatever industry you're in. And throughout the time, you can promote it and people can post questions, and you can go and do live videos in there. So it becomes a different value set for those people that are joining it. And what you'll also notice over time is once you get to this kind of certain level of users that are in there that are liking it, it'll take on its own life where somebody will post a question, and before you even get to answering it, another user has given their feedback on it, and it really starts to have its own ecosystem.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's great explanation of groups and how to use them. You also mentioned YouTube. Mm-hmm. And that's another scary place for a lot of people, right? Those that, certainly don't want to be, have their, want to be on video, let's say. But how do you feel about YouTube as a viable marketing option for small businesses? Is it, it's been around a while now. There's tons and tons of videos, very easy for your stuff to get lost on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Talk to us a little bit about how your experience and your feelings about where YouTube might or might not fit in for a small business.
Absolutely. And YouTube is ultimately a search engine owned by Google, and people go to YouTube to find videos that will help them do something. So, for me, a lot of times if I'm buying, a piece of technology, I'll go to YouTube and look for a review on that. And I'll believe the Joe Schmo down the road who has a very unpolished video who's telling me what his experience of this product is, over the brand's one that's there, right? So a lot of times when you create a video for your business, you're not going in it to try to sell your service. You're going to provide information and value. We have a client who for 5 years, she has done a video every week on a different like home kitchen product or bath product. Or she has a home decor store. Never once in the 5 years has there ever been a video that says, this is the price, this is on sale, come in and get it now. It was like, hey, here's this product. This is what we love about it. And this is what our clients like about it as well. And it has worked really well for her. So much so that she skipped a week one time and people were kind of angry that there wasn't a video coming out. But what you'll notice with YouTube is you don't have to have a large studio to create content. I mean, most people are carrying around enough they need to create a YouTube video in their pocket 24 hours a day, right? Probably not when they sleep, but it's beside the bed. But the idea is you have a ton of knowledge, whether you're an accountant or you're, a cake decorator or whatever, there is a skill, a knowledge that you have that other people are looking to have answers to, right? So you can put on a 30-second video, a 3-minute video, it doesn't matter. But the idea is you need to be doing it, consistently, right? You're not going to put 3 videos up and suddenly your business is going to grow. I've had my YouTube channel, I've got probably about 710 subscribers right now to it, but that has started to exponentially grow the more videos I put on there. And I'm in marketing, and the top performing video was me talking about a new audio board that I bought for doing podcasts. And I just said, this is what I loved about it. And people were like, there's like thousands of views. And every week there's questions. People are commenting saying, can you help me? I can't get this to work or that to work. And I'm replying back to them because I want to become a value point for people to like that channel. Right? If somebody's going to buy that, they may have a business. They may look at the other videos. I don't know. But the idea is I want to help people and put it out there. So it doesn't always have to be around what your industry is. Now, there are people who will create a YouTube channel on a specific topic, and that's what they want to do. And that's great too. But from a general business, the idea is really just how can you provide value to your audience?
And I have a funny story to add to that about the content doesn't need to revolve all around your business. So we have a group for our industry, and I would do Facebook Lives, or we would do Facebook YouTube videos. And again, I was of the belief that, okay, well, what am I going to say that's of value to the people? That, if someone's going to watch me, they need to learn something. They need to have something of value. And then there was one day where I received a box of swag from someone. And so I thought, okay, what the heck? I'm going to videotape and do a Facebook Live of me opening this box. It is by far the video that has had the most views. And all I'm doing is opening the box and taking out the things in the box and showing people the swag that I received. And it is one of the highest rated videos that we have. So it absolutely does not have to always revolve around your content. And that surprised me to no end.
Yeah.
And one of the top types of videos that you'll see out there on YouTube are what are called unboxing videos.
Yeah.
Right? People want to, I don't know if it's the attraction to wanting to experience what it's like to open up something new. I mean, we've all bought technology. We had to peel that plastic coating off, and that feeling of gratitude you get when you do that. It's the same thing when you open a box of something. It's like a present. So, that idea is taking people behind the scenes of your business so they can experience what you experience.
Yeah. Does that video have more views than mine, Juliet? I thought our number one video was still the one where our team got to throw a cream pie in my face in the middle of winter.
Yeah, it might be it might be second. It might be second behind that.
Number one.
That got a lot of views as well.
Yeah, people love to see me getting a cream pie in my face. I know. Yeah. Podcasting. Mm-hmm. We've touched on that a little, and obviously that's what we're doing right here. And you have a podcast as well. Mm-hmm. Where do you see podcasting fitting into a marketing program for a business?
So podcasting has gained a lot of headway in the marketplace in the last several years. You know, you've got more and more directories and, you know, places to consume podcasts. You know, it's now on, you know, Spotify, and, you know, you've got those, you know, smart devices, and people are listening to audio in their car a lot more. So where I see a podcast really beneficial for a business is not as a means to advertise, but as a means to share your area of expertise and your knowledge. So there's different types of podcasts. There could be like a solo podcast where you're just going on the microphone and you're talking on a single topic. And I say single topic because people don't really want to sit down and listen to an hour-long podcast, right? Because they don't normally have that much time, right? When you look up a podcast, you're looking through the names of the episodes, and usually they're like, you know, how to overcome this, or, you know, the 3 things you should do before this, those type of things. They're like, well, okay, that's what I want to know. I'm going to listen to it. And you'd be surprised how many people judge whether they're going to listen to it by the length of that episode, right? So you know, in that 30 to 45 minutes is a good range for a podcast, you know, if there's a lot of, you know, information that's in it. But I've seen some where they're 5-minute episodes. But the idea is to get knowledge out there. And my podcast that I created was called the Content Amplification Podcast, because I created this program of coaching clients to understand that you don't need to be, you know, shooting a video and then writing a blog and then doing a podcast, right? You can have one of those that you really want to do well, and we can split that out and amplify it by taking the audio from the video, turning into a podcast, transcribing it, having 90% of that blog post be from that text, right? Pulling out snippets for social media. You really have one level input with multiple streams of output in it. So when I started that podcast, it was all about just getting people under that mindset of thinking about it. So how do you come up with topics with an episode? You know, how do you do, you know, Facebook Live, or, you know, what is the basic understanding of Facebook ads? All the different elements that I could teach people to understand how to do those things. And it wasn't until this second season where I started to now reach out to different entrepreneurs, industry professionals across the world and say, hey, I'd like to have you as a guest because I want to hear how you're doing your content, because I want to share that with the audience. So I transitioned it in the second season from a solo show to an interview-based show.
Excellent. Can you just repeat the name of your podcast so that our audience has it as well?
Yeah, it's the Content Amplification Podcast. And if you Google it, it will come up.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, the time is flying by here. One thing I did want to touch on, I noticed in your bio, and you haven't mentioned this once while we've been talking, but that you are a Pyro Technician.
That's right.
Please tell us a little more about that. How did that come to be?
Well, you know what? Since I was a kid, I was always fascinated with fireworks. And once I turned 19, I wanted to become certified to be able to be licensed to shoot them off. And it was like the government was putting on the program every year. And in our area, there was never 10 people to do it. So they'd always cancel it. And it wasn't until about 7 years ago where I finally got to go to the course and took it and became a display fireworks technician. So, you know, going out and doing, you know, New Year's, Canada Day, all those shows, and then became a supervisor level. And then I went and took my pyrotechnic certification so I could do, you know, theater concerts. I did professional bull riding with pyro and everything like that. It's just a labor of love and a passion for me. And it's a good, you know, it's a good escape, right?
Yeah.
From it. And there's a level of creativity and art where, you know, you are in control of somebody's enjoyment of the show. And there's nothing better than finishing a 12, 15-minute New Year's Eve show, and the last shell goes off and you hear like horns and clapping and everything, and people are hooting and hollering. That is a huge level of gratification. Even though it took you 7 hours in the freezing cold to set up that show, it was all worth it.
Love that.
Absolutely. I mean, I've met lots and lots of people in my life who love fireworks, will drive anywhere for a fireworks show, but you're the first person I've met, yes, Juliet, but you're the first person I've met who was so enthralled with fireworks, you actually learn how to be the person who sets up the fireworks show. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and one thing to that too was the company that hires us, because we've become certified and then we get hired by the company, actually has then used my services for marketing. So it came twofold and kind of worked out really well that way.
Absolutely. That's the true spirit of an entrepreneur, right? You
Yeah.
followed your passion and made a job out of it, so to speak. So,
Yeah, and one topic before I know we're getting short on time, that I think is very valuable to talk about briefly is the idea of paid digital advertising.
okay.
I hear that a lot where people are like, well, isn't Facebook free? And in reality, it is free as a user, but they're pulling back the reins on what you get from what we call organic posts. Like, so if you post, you're going to notice not as many people are seeing it. They want you to pay to advertise, and that's okay. It is probably the better form of advertising than what I would consider traditional, like running a half-page newspaper ad, where if it doesn't the phone doesn't start to ring after that ad's printed, you can't do anything about it. But if you're running a Facebook ad for, let's say, $100 for 7 days, and something's not resonating, you can turn it off, upload another image, and try that. So you're in complete control of it. So the biggest question I want to get out to your audience, or the answer to the question, is, where should I start? And the first thing somebody should get set up is what we call a retargeting ad. And that means if somebody has come to your website and they leave it and then they go on Facebook, there should be posts from you or content from you showing up. We do that through retargeting. So it could be, just a video maybe of you talking about something and then a button to message you. Very basic, but the idea is make that connection.
That's great advice. I know Juliet is stalked constantly by retargeting ads. Remember?
I actually find them challenging, especially around birthday times, because I'll be shopping online and then all of my devices get stalked by these. So no one in my family can even look at any of my devices because they'll know what I've been looking at. So, but they are very effective.
There's a lot of, kind of discussion out there about people thinking your phones are listening, right? And retargeting. And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely true. If you do start to talk about a product around a smart device, you will start to see ads for it. So I saw something really funny the other day. It said, if you really want something from your spouse for your birthday, start talking about the product around their phone, because then they're going to start to see ads about it.
So that's true. That actually that does happen?
Yeah. So the latest update on iPhone has a little color on the top corner where it's like a red or a green dot. Green meaning the camera is being activated, and red dot is the actual microphone. So, if you are talking around, it's always listening, especially if you've got like your Siri or your Google turned on to be listening for you. It always has to be listening. So they're actually indexing the stuff that you're saying.
Ah, yes. The world of digital marketing.
and myself, from a personal user standpoint, not the marketing side, I don't mind it because it's actually helpful when I see content that's related to something that I've been discussing. So other people that don't have that feeling, I find it's very helpful that's out there. From a marketing standpoint, I think it's awesome. But
yeah, no, that's great. Well, that brings us to the part of the show that we call the Smart Man, Smarter Woman version of James Lipton's Actors Studio, where we have 6 questions that we ask every guest. Same questions, and always get some interesting answers.
Can't wait.
If you are ready, Shaun,
I'm ready.
Put you on the hot seat for a couple of minutes, and we will go through our questions.
All right, let's do it.
Question number 1. What one word best defines an entrepreneur?
Resilient.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
An electrician.
What profession would you like never to attempt?
Plumber.
Okay. What sound or noise do you love?
Silence.
Okay. What book would you recommend every entrepreneur should read?
Probably the most recent one that I would recommend, looking over my bookshelf, is one called Brandscape.
Brandscape?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. When your own entrepreneurial journey is completed, what do you hope your legacy is?
That I was always somebody that people could rely on.
Perfect. And for those in our audience who would like to reach out and connect with you, Shaun, what is the best way for them to do that?
They can just do a Google search for Blue Cow Marketing, and they can choose if they want to do Facebook, YouTube, my website. It's all there.
Okay, perfect. And do you have any final thoughts you would like to share with our audience before we close the episode?
Just basically that the digital landscape is always going to be changing. You know, what we set out to do today, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months is most likely going to change. So if you're open to those type of changes, you will do well in what you're doing. And just be okay with the fact that you might try something that is not going to work, but you just don't do that again and try something else.
Okay, excellent. And Juliette, do you have any final words for our audience?
I don't know. I spoke a lot more than I was planning to, so I should probably just, end off there rather than continuing on. So I'll just turn it back to you, Steve.
Okay. Thank you, Juliette. And that brings us to this episode's words of wisdom. And I came across this quote, and it really made me think about websites and marketing and how so many websites out there make the cardinal sin of making the website all about them as opposed to how they solve problems for their audience. And I came across this quote and I thought it fits just so perfectly with that. And the quote is from someone by the name of Tim Williams, and it goes like this: clients don't care about the labor pains. They just want to see the baby. And I thought, yeah, that fits. So anyway, thank you for a great episode. Thank you very much, Shaun. Lots of great helpful information there for our audience. Thank you again to my co-host. But most importantly, thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in and giving us a listen. We sincerely hope you found some value here today. If you did, please subscribe. You can find us in all the regular places: iTunes, Spotify, or the website smartmansmarterwoman.com. So thank you. Until next time, take good care of yourself and those that you love. Bye for now.